Donald, it is awesome to see you. How are you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing great. How you getting along?
I am getting along very well. I just spent with family a couple of days up in the mountains. We're up in Durango, Colorado, up in Purgatory, and it was absolutely amazing. And there's one thing to see the mountains that are here in Arizona, which are really like foothills and highest elevation. I think right in this area, if we go to top of Santana, it might be 2,400 feet. And up there we're in the thousands of feet. So,
Wow.
and when you're looking around and seeing everything around you, it really gives you an appreciation both for perspective. And I've been sharing some of the pictures on social media. Gives
Yes.
you, it gives you an appreciation for one, kind of how small we are, and two, how big the opportunity is that's out there. So
Yes.
I'm riding on a high, Rocky Mountain
Uh,
high.
Man, that is so good. Yeah, I enjoy going to phenomenal natural areas because it does humble you. Because lots of times, you're a big fish in a big pond or a big fish in a little pond. And sometimes you think you know a lot. And then you go in front of something awesome like the ocean or a mountain and you stare at it and you think, wow, I got a lot to learn.
A lot to learn. I also learned that elevation is good for me from getting my cardio in place. Like I was sucking some wind as we were hiking in the mountains.
Yeah. Well, my house is at, I think it's 106 feet above sea level,
I thought you
but
were saying
and
degrees.
no, 106 feet. And then we grew up at 18 feet above sea level. So whenever I go anywhere in these beautiful United States, and we went to Alaska last year, as you know, man, we were huffing.
So when you were in Alaska, we recorded the first podcast episode where you were on the Find My Catalyst episode podcast, and this is going to be one of what I think are going to be mids call it a collab or a
Yeah, yeah,
collab.
I
So
think so.
here we're going to actually cross post this podcast on two different podcasts. Donald has his podcast, and we've got the Find My Catalyst podcast. So Donald, tell me a little bit about your podcast, or tell the folks who are listening on our side a little bit about your podcast.
Sure. Well, as you know, I spent 40 years in the ecotourism business, and what is that? It's a huge business, from RVs to actually managing the campgrounds. So it's state parks, national parks, everything in between, the mule rides that go down the Grand Canyon, the canoe livery, the horse livery, just state parks and county parks, that whole realm. It's an honor to have served for so many years, starting as a park ranger and then finally retiring as the director of 175 state parks in Florida. And we had about 1,500 employees and, millions of dollars in budget. And it's a big ship. And every state park is like a franchisee. So, how do you keep the burgers tasting the same in all franchises? But how to keep and maintain the integrity, the local integrity of each franchise to make it, attractable and different. So it's a fun game that we play in our industry, and providing recreation and preserving the natural area. They kind of conflict. Actually, they don't kind of conflict. They definitely conflict. And policies and procedures, and where do you build things within the natural environment so people can enjoy it, but they won't ruin it. And that's the art and science of my profession. So my podcast is called Tailgate Talks, and tailgate in my business, we do a lot of business on the tailgate. While many times we'll have an office, especially when you work in the field. I mean, your boots on the ground, folks, are around the tailgate. So that's what it is. It's an open and honest conversation with leaders to discuss all sorts of stuff. So tell me about your podcast.
So I will in just a second. One of the things I appreciate about yours and that whole idea of the tailgate and the truck is there are a couple of ways that you can have the conversation. And I know we've talked about this before. There's the we're driving and we're side by side, both looking out the windshield, seeing what's in front of us. There's the I'm on either side of the bed of the truck, elbows up, looking across at you. And then there's the sitting together on the back of the tailgate.
Hmm.
And it to me, it reinforces the importance of medium where communication takes place. And too often we overcomplicate stuff. Like we get into the phone or the conference call or the what happens in a room, and we try to make a conversation happen in one place that really would be better happening in another place. And as a
Hmm.
result, the message gets lost. So
Yes.
there's real power in the tailgate and the truck.
Yeah. And worse than get the message getting lost, it gets changed through all of it. And we really wanted to paint it blue and it ends up yellow and no one understands why. Yeah, it's the truth. And the board meeting is very important. I've spent so many of my years with legislators and at the Capitol and governors and just this high level and just explaining what we need to these folks. But then I also need to make sure the boots on the ground guy gets it. And that's why kicking pine cones, as I like to call it, kicking pine cones, like walking through the woods, just talking about it. Because it's the tailgate is an open and honest conversation. There's no one fronting, as the young kids would say, right? It's real. And so I love the board meeting. I love meetings and getting things done, but I hate meetings that you can't get things done. And oftentimes you could do it one on one, like we are now sitting on the tailgate. So welcome to the tailgate, Mike.
There we go. Thank you. And welcome to Find My Catalyst again. And the whole Find My Catalyst podcast is about helping people find their catalyst. I never expect that everybody's going to listen to every episode. I do believe you could get something out of each episode. But what I want you to do is be able to find your specific episode, your catalyst to start doing the things that you're meant to do, meant to be, by either thinking different, then ultimately doing different, and then being different. And I bring experts on, like Donald, who have a certain set of skills where we can deconstruct those skills through questions and conversation to help identify logical next steps so that people can take action. Because you can't reflect on what you're going to do. But by identifying those next steps, starting to create movement forward, you can start to assess and say, hey, am I actually moving in the right direction? Because there are multiple directions. Forward movement can be north, south, east, west. You're moving toward a specific direction. It doesn't always have to be north. And sometimes we get lost in that idea of, hey, I always have to keep moving toward this thing. Let's move toward the goal. And that's ultimately the background behind Find My Catalyst. Help you find your catalyst, that nudge to do the things you're meant to do and create that action.
Yeah, your show is terrific. It's so enlightening, and the people you have on it are brilliant. And so I just was listening to one earlier today when I was doing my walk, and it's like, golly, this lady knows what she's talking about. It's pretty darn interesting because how do I have access to her? I don't know her. So I get to know her through your podcast. And that's the brilliance of having this social media, these podcasts, these opportunities.
Now, one of the skills that I have gained a greater appreciation for I did not have an appreciation for before, and then sometimes it's gotten me into trouble, is the ability to ask questions. So I ask questions and I listen, and then I build on the next question beyond that. And sometimes I'll get into trouble, as tone, and depending on how you deliver it, context, whether we're in the truck, on the side of the bed, or on the tailgate. And those are the things where I've worked to get better at. What I've found is it's helped me, interviewing people has helped me both ask better questions and listen better. And what I'm hoping to do with this podcast is provide you a chair in the room during the conversation. And ideally, I'm asking the questions that you're thinking about
Hmm.
and potentially the questions that you didn't even think were possible, or that next question, which helps to open up that journey that we're going on.
Yeah, asking questions is just a natural part of who you are. And I think it's terrific because you're absolutely right. I may be thinking it, but I may be the guy in the back of the room at a conference that isn't asking it. Or the conference is one thing. How about the end of the table at a conference table? And there's only a dozen of you, but someone has to ask the questions.
And just to build on that, and we'll get into some of the stuff that we wanted to go a bit deeper on, but to build on that, my view is that we as leaders, we are obligated to ask those questions.
Mhm.
And the reason we're obligated to ask those questions is because somebody else in the room may have the same question, but not feel comfortable asking the question, may not have the same confidence in asking the question. And it is our obligation as leaders, if we're going to help build other leaders, if we're going to help move organizations forward to ask those questions. Now, there's a time and a place. And this is one of those stories I'm going to share at some point in time. I'll share it here briefly, but I had a leader, and I don't want to go too super deep into this, but I'll share it. I had a leader look at me, look across the room, across the table at me, and said, "You need to stop asking questions."
Mm.
He said,
That's
my nonverbal was probably a little different than that Donald just gave. And I the reason why, the justification she gave for why I should not ask questions is because when I ask questions, it makes everybody else around think that I don't believe in what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'll explain the maybe later. But yeah, I mean, I think that asking questions is so important, but asking questions without self-awareness is a lost cause. I mean, because you're going to upset somebody. So, you have to be enough aware. Timing's everything.
Yeah.
And, who you asking the question to and the tone. You're exactly right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Tone, context, medium. So let's get into our conversation for today. Where are we going? Guide us as a park leader.
Well, I think what we talked about is that there's so many, now I'm a business owner myself, do, coaching and a lot of public speaking and training. And yes, most of it is in the ecotourism space, but I also do it elsewhere because, customer service is customer service and leadership is leadership. So my angle always is paralleling leadership to the natural world, or leadership to or management to the natural world, or supervising to the natural world, which is it's just how I'm built, because that's where I came from. So it's easy to draw an example from the natural environment to help us understand and better participate in the business environment.
Amen. So why do people or well, actually, let's talk a little bit about an experience in a natural environment. Is everybody's experience the same in a natural environment?
No, it's choose your own journey, choose your own adventure. The natural environment is constant for a second, but then wait another second and it's going to be different. The wind stops and starts, and the wind increases and decreases. And that's going to have a lot to do with simple things like allergies, right? How's that going to affect me? And I don't even know it's affecting me, but I got to be self-aware. But then if you wait a week, the river just rose. It rose, it rose a lot, and I can't even cross the river. So my trajectory is now going to be different, and I can't move forward all the time. Sometimes you got to hit the river, hang a left or right, and then find a safe place to cross to move forward. That's brilliant. It could be frustrating, sure, but that's how we move in business. We get to an obstacle and we go, okay, we either got to go over it, under it, through it, on and on and on. The key is getting over it psychologically and moving on.
So, and if you've ever seen, I think it's the second to last Mission Impossible, but in Mission Impossible, Benji is guiding Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise's character, to run through a certain area. And what happens is he's managing it by looking at a screen that is in 2 dimensions. And he's telling Tom Cruise's character to do certain things. What he doesn't realize is Cruise is operating in a 3-dimensional environment, and there are other obstacles that are there, that everything looks good from a conversion metric perspective or doesn't look good from a conversion metric perspective, or activity data is up or down. What part of the picture are you missing by not being out in the field and walking around and being with your team and actually observing that, hey, even though that stream looks like a millimeter on a map, it's actually a lot bigger in person. And for whatever reason, due to the amount of snowfall that was up in the mountains earlier that year, it is a heck of a lot deeper or wider than what you had anticipated. So this is where that connection really comes, I believe, between what we see in nature and how things change over time, and what happens in business and how things are constantly changing inside our business operating systems.
Yeah, constantly. And spreadsheets are so important. And you look at a specific thing and you're going to track a specific metric. Perfect, love it. Metric, perfect, love it. That's exactly what you need to do. But that alone, without understanding your competition, without understanding the latest and greatest, without understanding the new CEO of the new company across the street, without understanding that bigger picture, which relates to the mountains, the snow in the mountains. I mean, how much snow is in the mountains, and when is it going to thaw, and when's my creek going to rise? You know,
But well, there's only 4 seasons, so things only change 4 times a year, right? Like it's like 4 quarters. They only change.
it's so funny. Of course, we've talked about this before, and as a environmental specialist, if you will, for 40 years, the the environment changes all the time. Let's just say it changes 12 times a year, once a month. That most people would think, oh my God, that's crazy. It doesn't do that. Yeah, just because Hobby Lobby doesn't have a new decoration doesn't mean that the environment's not changing. But then in my world, if I mentioned that the environment changes 12 times a year, I'd be laughed at because it changes daily. It changes hourly. Just like I said before, seconds. Something's going to change. I'm looking out my window right now and it's not windy, but it was windy earlier and that changes a lot. So what's blowing your sails? What's the wind that's about to come in your area? And how can we prepare our business? How can we adjust our sales?
And how do you improve your team's comfort in either asking questions or sharing information so that you have the feedback loops that are necessary in order for you to make effective decisions?
Yeah, it's so hard. When I manage this system of 175 franchises, it's a huge system, right? So just imagine having 175 franchises, and how do I connect with that manager who I may only see once a year, maybe twice a year, maybe? How do we connect? And in my opinion, is that trust is the key to absolutely everything. Because my communications that's going to come out of my office is really not going to be based on grammar. It's going to be based on, are they going to listen to it, or are they going to hear it, or as people say, do they feel it? If they're not feeling what I'm saying, then I might as well just throw it out the window. So they need to trust me. And how do we build trust? Well, once you have it, it's hard to get it back because you already proved them right or wrong, if whatever they thought about you. But how do you get it? You know, is being genuine. Is genuine as a tree that grows weird. And there's many trees that are not straight up, that inherently grow peculiarly. And does that make them bad? No, doesn't make it at all. Actually, they do a great job providing shade. So it's just understanding that everybody's an individual, but the expectation is the constant. And sometimes that's hard to understand. If your goal is to get shade, who really cares if it's going to go grow straight up or sideways, right? I know this might sound weird to a lot of people, but everybody is unique, but my standard is the same. And so they see that and that builds trust because I'm treating everybody equally or equal standard. And my expectations are high. I expect you to do a lot.
There are two right? There's a sign and a signal that I like to look at if I'm looking at an organization to help me understand or at least know where to ask the next set of questions. One sign are the either however they present it into their organization. It could be their core values or their guiding principles. I tend to like guiding principles more than values for specific reasons, but if I look at that, if I have their list of guiding principles, it could be their list of standards, some kind of list of something that they've got there that's documented. I see that thing. Then the second thing I want to look at are their KPIs, their dashboard. What are the things that they're looking at to say, is the car on the road going at the right pace and has it moved over in the right direction? So if I know KPIs on a dashboard and I know standards, So KPIs would be the signals and standards would be the signs. If I
Right?
know those two things, then I can, I know where I want to start asking more questions about what's happening
Yes.
inside the business.
Yes. And if you look at your gauge on your truck and you're pulling a trailer, your camper, if you're just looking at the gauge and not looking out the window, you're going to have so many questions about why aren't you going? Why are you reducing speed? But the reality is that the incline, you're driving up a mountain, and without seeing the broader picture, your environment, your business environment, if you're focused on that, you can drive people crazy by asking, why am I decreasing speed? Why are we decreasing speed? And you're just saying, and they're thinking, are you kidding? We are working harder than we ever have before. We're pushing you up the hill. And it's that connection, it's that bigger picture within your work environment that people really appreciate. They start to trust you. And to me, that's the key of communication and leadership.
So I'm going to turn the mic over to you and ask you, what question do you have, or what questions do
Well,
you have?
well, one thing I love about you, many things, but one is that your journey into leadership and coaching, because it is pretty fascinating to me. What brought you into this game?
Wow, great question. So it's been one of those games that's been going on for a long time. So I kind of feel like I've always been in the game and have failed multiple times. One of the biggest failures I got was during a peak season at UPS. I was in operations at UPS, and I we were waiting on some stuff to get out to an airplane to get the airplane out on time, and we were short staffed. And I made some comments, and the comments led to someone not responding very well to those comments, emotional response to those comments. And then fast forward a couple of weeks later, I got a book called Managing from the Heart. And that book was from a leader inside the organization who who heard of the situation and wanted to help me gain or shift perspective. So that's where I started to get into this whole kind of leadership piece. It was, and more on the management side, but it was way too early for me to
Mm,
even really understand and embrace that. Because at that age and at that stage, I was really like, whatever, like, look, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to get things done. We want to get to the objective. We have some things that we need to accomplish. We know that we need to get planes out on time. In order to get planes out on time, these things need to happen. And it doesn't matter whether or not we have the right resources. We got to figure it out and get things moving. A lot of stuff has evolved over time. And part of that was moving out of operations and then into customer success and starting to see what happens in a different operating environment, and then moving into sales roles and then seeing what happens inside that operating environment and realizing that sales is actually an act of service and an act of leadership, both of them combined, because you're helping people solve problems. So then the next stage turned into leading teams. And even then, leading teams, I thought, well, if I could just get people to do it the way that I do it and what worked for me, all of a sudden everything's going to work out fine and we're going to grow and everything's going to be great. And the reality is people are different, and it's good to see you smile. And these days, I'm less hung up on what we call things, but it's very important that we agree to whatever it is that we're going to call something. So let's
mm,
have our own vocabulary around what something is so that we can create better alignment. The challenge that I saw after doing this, and this is kind of fast forward to the end, is after operating this business for just about 10 years now, I look back and I said, you know what, the revenue challenge in many organizations is actually a culture challenge in disguise. And culture
mm.
starts with leadership.
Explain that.
So it's a culture challenge in disguise, meaning, you know, when someone hears the word sales, there's different reactions. So you hear the word sales. What's your first reaction today to the word sales?
Well, as a purchaser,
Sure.
I think of it as that side. So someone's selling me something, which
Yeah.
isn't a great feeling.
Yeah. Why not?
Hmm. Because I'm more of a buyer.
Okay. Why do you
So
like to buy?
I'm more of a buyer than a shopper.
Okay. What do you like to buy?
So I mean, I just like to go to the store, get the milk, get the eggs, and I'm out. I don't really go up and down the aisles and shop. So someone at the end offering me a cracker is not my thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So if I ask this question, and usually I'll ask this when I'm speaking in front of groups of people. So this could be a little bit, everybody who's listening, you just raise your hand. How many of you like to be sold to?
I don't see any hands.
I don't see any hands either. Every once in a while, there's someone in the room who will raise their hand. There's always somebody. There's always a couple of people,
Oh,
depending
it's
on
that
size.
guy.
Yeah, there's
Right.
depending on. So then the next question I ask is, okay, how many of you like to buy things? What do you think
Yeah.
happens?
A lot of people raise their hands.
And then the next thing is people start to smile because it's weird. They don't like to be sold to, but they like to buy
Right.
things.
Yeah. That seems like pride is somewhere in there.
Well, there's pride, but there's also agenda. So when you're
Hmm.
being sold to, or you feel like you're being sold to, it doesn't feel like it's about you. It's about that other person. It's about what
Right.
they're trying to do, is what they're trying to impress upon you, how they're trying to convince you, all of those kind of things. Well, the challenge inside organizations is sometimes the revenue challenge, many times that revenue challenge is a culture challenge in disguise because people have a different perception of around what sales is. They think that yeah, sales is the stereotypical used car salesman, or the person who has the gift of gab, or the person who's really convincing, or any of those kinds of things. And what they forget to do is see how that sits inside the ecosystem inside their business and connects to
Hmm.
all of the other things that are happening. Now, if you've got a sales team where everybody in the other parts of the organization thinks sales gets away with stuff, they are always out there being charismatic and influencing what happens and the ones who drive change inside the business. Now there's this negative perception you have of what's happening on the revenue side. Then, if their revenue team is not communicating well with operations, fulfillment, product, the people building the product, customer support, the people supporting things, leadership inside the organization. And everybody has these preconceived notions around what's happening on that side. Now we create more tension in the questions we ask, and we wonder, well, hey, how come you're not getting that truck that truck at the rate that we want it to? Why is it not moving? I'm looking at the dashboard and things aren't moving. And the reality is, hey, there's an incline or there's headwinds that we've run into. And if we communicate better with each other and have this view of how our each of those functional areas connect with each other in the system, now you start to realize, hey, everybody in this environment has a role to play relative to customers. And if we don't serve our customers, we don't have a business,
Yes.
right? So that revenue
Exactly.
challenge is a culture challenge in disguise. And then the next stage is culture starts with leadership.
Hmm.
How leaders look at this inside the organization, how they communicate with each other, what kind of environment they help to create and shape and build. Leadership starts with self. So if we don't look at ourselves, reflect in the mirror, and start being better leaders of self, how can we lead others? How can we expect our teams to operate with each other well? How can we help our teams or organizations to operate with our customers? So that's the arc on that. Revenue challenge is a culture challenge in disguise. Culture starts with leadership. Leadership starts with self. Leaders build leaders. Leadership starts with self, and leadership is how we move forward. And that's the journey that I've gone through where I've shifted my focus and still help people on the revenue side. I mean, that's an important piece. If we don't have revenue, we're not going to be able to. Revenue is how we fund the ability to do what we do.
Right.
Culture is how we do what we do. Execution is how we achieve results, and leadership is how we move forward. If we take those simple things together and get everybody aligned on that, then all of a sudden good things really can happen. So that's your journey. Thanks for the question.
Well, what do you think about this? Just because I'm not in the sales department,
Yeah,
I'm not in the sales department.
sure.
Am I still in sales?
Absolutely. You may not be in sales relative to the carrying a quota or carrying a bag, as we would have said way back in the day. You may not have that functional role, but as a team, as a member of the team, the work that you do ultimately impacts our ability to serve our customers well. And if you believe what my view is around what sales is about connecting the dots between problems and solutions. Some problems are known, some are unknown. Some solutions are known, and some are unknown. It's about connecting the dots between problems and solutions, problem solving at its core. You can figure out how the work that you do connects directly to the problem that either your external customers have or your internal customers have. You'll realize, hey, there are things I can do to help make everybody's experience better, which will ultimately help their business grow, your business grow, and we build this ecosystem.
Yeah, I believe that 100% because back in the day when we were hunter and gatherers,
Yeah.
we would go into the natural environment and we would try to provision our people.
Okay.
We provision our people. We care about our people. We want to serve our people.
Yeah.
And so in the modern world, when I'm the director, I need to sell. I'm not going to hunt and gather. I need to sell my idea to the governor so we can get it funded.
Yeah.
I need to sell my idea to the local community so they can have buy-in so we can do what we need to do with facilities at a particular unit. I think that we do that. That's just a natural part. Leaders sell. And sometimes people think, it's kind of sleazy or hokey or whatever word you want to think.
Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. You have to sell. You got to know your product. What's your product? Why are we doing it? We're doing it to provision my people because I'm the leader and that's my job.
Well, and realize on the other end, someone is buying.
Right.
There's always a problem that exists. People have problems. This is one of the things that I get hung up with on the marketing side. People will talk about personas, these fictional beings of, whatever you want to talk about on that side. Real people have real problems. Fictional people have manufactured problems. Let's focus on the real people who have real problems. And that's not about trying to convince somebody that they have a problem. It's actually helping them open their eyes to the reality of the problem they have, the challenge that they have. And it may or may not be their priority right now. And we've got to understand that. But the questions we ask can help reveal, one, their perspective of the problem. Are they aware or unaware? Problem aware or problem unaware? Because if they're problem unaware and you're trying to get them to change, what are you doing? You're not serving, you're not leading, you're not helping, you're potentially doing something for your own agenda. So let's focus on the problems that exist out there. And if we look at all of the people we work with, either as internal customers or external customers, people that we're serving, and take the time and just ask, what are they struggling with? What would they like to fix? It doesn't mean that you have to be the person who fixes it, but if you know somebody who can fix it, I know the last thing you want me to do is fix a starter on a tractor. I'm sure I could do some YouTube videos and figure out how to do it with some tools, but that's not my thing. That's Donald's thing. You want Donald to come in and take care of that kind of stuff.
Right. There's 3 bolts on my starter, on my tractor. And one of the bolts is very challenging. The engineer never changed it before.
Awesome.
2 of the bolts are great. I'm good with it. The other one takes time. And unfortunately, it's a longer story, but I have some tractor issues. But anyway, yeah, that's my thing. My thing is to do it. But I think that's why people enjoy hiring you and I to speak and to inspire and educate staff. It's because we are different, but we're focused on leadership. We're focused on that value. We're focused on being the catalyst of change. I mean, if I was a CEO and I wanted to change how I'm going to do it, I need someone or a team to come in and to help move that obstacle out of the way. Blow up the beaver dam so the river can flow again. Whatever it is, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons that when we are hired to go and we speak at conferences and corporate events, we take it seriously. We're there to make a difference. We're not there just to, show up, right?
Again, amen. Like there's this connection. And you've seen this, that whole learn, think, act, right? You learn something new, you think, you reflect on how it applies to what you already know or have done before or experienced, and then you take action. And when you take action, you can apply it. Most people have experienced a park at one point in their life. Is that fair?
Yeah, I believe so.
And those parks could be your local neighborhood park, right? This open area where you've got some grass to run around in, some swings to hang out on, some play around, slides to go down. There's an experience that you have there. It could be a community park, bigger city park. Could be a state park. It could be a national park. It could even be a theme park. Like all of these things, we have these parks. We've experienced a park out there. And this is where you start to see that head nod come in, where it relates to folks. It's relatable. We've experienced what happens there. And what happens if you look at your business and you look at the way that your people are and your teams and your customers are interacting in an environment that was either designed organically by nature or designed deliberately, intentionally by your team to help achieve a specific result. Can you share a bit, Donald, about what goes into state park design to create an experience for people?
Well, you bring up a good point, and that is this Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park out of all of them.
Wow.
It's the most visited, and it is in two different states.
Oh.
There are state parks that are in two different states. That each state they got together and say this is so important that we're going to do our side of the mountain. Can you do your side of the mountain? There are county and city parks. They go beyond, and I think the analogy here is the departments within your organization. Is that do the critters care who owns it? They don't care. I assure you, they don't care. Not only do they not care, they're not even aware of that, right? They don't care. And so, does your customers care of what department is holding up the shipment? No, they're upset that they don't have it. And so that the collaboration between internal politics or breaking the dam between one department or another, there's often rifts, and they're often not because of the logistics or technical issues. It's because who's in charge of this section, who's in charge of this section. Maybe they used to work with each other and now they're in competition with each other. Now they don't like each other. That's not helping the critters at all. So I think it's this focus on what the mission of your organization is and then work together to do it. Sounds easy, sounds great, right? But it doesn't happen all the time, and you have to work at it. Anything worth doing, you have to work at it.
Why do you have to work at
it? Because it doesn't come natural. It just doesn't come natural to walk in a straight line in the woods. It doesn't come natural to walk in a straight line or canoe in the straight line in a river. There's going to be a bend, and there's going to be an obstacle in the mountains, wherever you're walking, hiking, whatever the analogy is. You have to have the skill to get up and over it or under it or around it. You have to have the wisdom of that. And you got to have the oomph to do it. You got to work at it. It's easy to sit there. I know that, I'm in Florida, and there's people that get stuck on the beach all the time. They get stuck. And they get stuck, and now, luckily, there's enough people to help dig them out of the beach. That's not let alone the swamps and stuff, because you shouldn't drive in certain areas. You need to go around it. So, but you can't just sit there and cry. I have a saying I have with the grandkids. I have young adult grandkids, and when they have a problem, I tell them Superman ain't coming. And what I mean by that is that you have to be your own Superman. You have to be your own Wonder Woman. And you got to figure it out. And that is, you don't have to necessarily do it. You can call a guy, right? I know a guy, I can call him. But you got to do something. And that something takes the oomph, takes the work. And you got to work at it. That's what I'm talking about, is work at it. Don't accept that the guy in shipping's a jerk. Oh my God, don't accept it. I mean, something's got to change, man. We got to get that order out. No matter what industry you're in, that order, is a thing, and it has to move on down the road. Because again, critters don't care who owns the property.
And as you go a little bit deeper, you start asking some questions there, you start to reveal, hey, you know what? It might be something you're doing that's preventing that order from getting out. Or it might be someone else that you have a relationship with who's getting in the way. So there's just there are these other, and this is that whole leaders asking questions piece that's really important. Don't go in and tell people how to do things. Go in and ask questions about how they're doing things and observe. And when you observe these things in nature, or you observe these things in the operating environment that you're around, it's amazing what will reveal itself. Like, so water, does water try to go through the greatest amount of resistance when it is figuring out its way to go someplace?
No, of course not. It hits it. And it's amazing what water. Let's just think water over some rocks. Okay, water over the rocks. It hits the rock, and then it kind of blows up a little bit, and it turns frothy. We know it as white water, and that white water, that frothy, is oxygen. So hitting the rock, the water hitting the rock, isn't a bad thing. It's a great thing because it's providing oxygen for the water. And then it's hanging to the left, hanging to the right. It's going up and over, right, to get through it. And it continues down. I mean, there's scenario after scenario after scenario that we can learn in our corporate business world of how we can get through and over and under and still be successful. And while we're doing it, we're going to be raising the next crop of leaders because that's what the oxygen is doing when it's hitting it. It's oxygenating the water, and the fish are happy. There's many benefits, even though we think that it's tragedy. It's oftentimes not. It's an opportunity.
And when you bring people together and ask those questions, you'd be shocked at how creative they can get. To that point about the engineer didn't ever have to turn that bolt or that nut on that starter. They designed it for what they needed to do, but didn't functionally design it what the person down the end needed to do. And if you go out there and you observe and you participate and you learn and you take in the feedback, what you'll find is your people know how things can get better. The
Yes,
challenge is, are you actually listening to them? And if you are listening to them, are you taking action?
yes. And you said something earlier. Who likes to be sold something?
Yeah.
You mentioned that. So if you're the head, if you're the CEO of your corporation, and through an email at 175 locations, you're going to tell them how we're going to make a change, that is selling them. You are selling them. Now, it's your responsibility to sell, but there's a couple of ways to sell. One is send out an email, and they're going to look at it and go, what the heck is this? Because nobody wants to get sold. But how about this? When I'm in the store and I'm coming down the aisle and the guy knows me, who's trying to sell me the crackers, right? The
Yeah.
samples,
Right.
and we start chatting it up, and he knows me and knows how I would benefit from the cracker. I don't know how, but you know what I mean? I would benefit from it. So, hey, this is how we're going to help you out. And that's how I think leaders can sell their people better, which is serving their people better by knowing their people better, by understanding the process. So we're not just sending this edict down the pipe and expect you to get it done by Tuesday. We actually are doing it in a way that we know you, you know us, and together we've worked together. And when we finally send it down, they're going to go, "Who is that? Oh, it's from Mike. That's fantastic. Let me read the latest." Instead of the opposite, which is, "Oh my God, it's from Mike," and they won't even click to open it. What type of leader do you want to be?
Donald, awesome conversation. I know this is the first of many of these that we're going to have and share with folks. The call to action that I'd like people to work with here. Number one, if you have a question around how you might connect the dots between what happens in nature and what happens in business, and you'd like Donald and I to work through it, please ask. Again, as leaders, it is our obligation to ask those questions. If you are looking at something and you're saying, I have no idea how the heck this would relate to it, challenge us. We'd like the challenge. As what we've observed over our careers is there are changes that are happening all the time. And it's the fundamentals that we get in the hands of our people, the leaders that we're building out there. Having them work on the fundamentals over and over and over again will help them be more adaptable in the scenarios that they're working through and help your business move forward faster, your interactions with customers move forward faster so that you can help them solve problems. Donald, where do you want people to check out the work that you're doing?
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and that's Donald Forgione, Forgione. And also, you could email me at donald@tailgate-talks.com. And Mike, where can we get more information about you and what you're doing?
So you can find your catalyst at findmycatalyst.com, which is the updated version of how we end these podcasts. If you've not checked out Tailgate Talks, please do so. And also on the Tailgate Talk side, if you've not checked out Find My Catalyst, please do so. Again, you can find your catalyst at findmycatalyst.com.